Hey, SCC members. I'm Charles Wood. I am the Vice Chair of Utah County Republican Party, and I am currently one of the three people that's still left for Congressional District 4's Executive Committee. But I also want to just explain what I'm doing because I'm also looking to kind of form a group of people that talk through some of the things that go on at the SCC or that the SCC cares about and make sure that we're addressing things. And then my plan when I signed up to run for executive committee was actually to take any ideas, any work, any other things that the group comes up with to the executive committee as ideas that could then be implemented by leadership. And I know that to a certain extent, the SCC does some of those things, but I feel like if we have a unified voice, we have a good discussion, and then we can bring things to the group, then we can make solid arguments for why we need to be moving forward in that way. So since the executive committee is mostly an advisory committee to the county party or the state party leadership, that's where I felt like I could really jump in and make a difference. Now, there are a few areas that I want to address both in the group and on the executive committee. And incidentally, also work through the Constitution and Bylaws Committee to make sure that we're empowering the party to do the right things and working to give directives so that we're moving in the right direction. But the first area is unity. And if you go to the SCC meetings, they've gotten better. But sometimes you see some pretty clear division lines between certain groups within the SCC. Some people don't trust Rob Axon. Other people fully support him. Some people, they're just kind of trusting him to be the chair and call balls and strikes. My feeling is that we need to make sure that everybody's good ideas are heard and that we are making sure that everybody can come together so that we can all pull in the same direction. I feel like SB 54 has been a huge detriment to us, but not just for the reasons that we usually talk about with nominating candidates. I think in a lot of ways we've been divided into groups that have different approaches or want to see different champions pulling for SB 54 to go down in one way or another. And instead, what I'd love to see us having the discussion, hey, maybe this group has a good idea, let's push that one forward, and then that group has another good idea, and let's push that one forward, and we can bring our ideas together and we can work together as a party. And I think within the sphere of influence that the party has, we really can make a huge difference. Now, with regards to SB 54, I think there are a few things that we can do there too. And we're going to have to kind of move with wherever our opposition moves to a certain degree and respond to them, and then obviously be working toward things that get us down the road toward getting it gone. But I worry a little bit too that if we get rid of it through, say, a legislative repeal, that they'll just run an initiative and just run us over anyway. And so we need to be thinking ahead in the game and making sure that we're paying attention to the moves that are made so that if we do wind up being able to get the legislative repeal, we have a block for the initiative so that we don't just wind up losing harder, because the court has sided with a lot of these groups that go and run the initiatives, and then like they did with the committee to do the lines, what am I thinking? The census. After the census, they drew the boundaries, and there was that initiative that put together that committee that was supposed to be in the middle of that. And, we tried to fight it in the courts. The legislature tried to fight it in the courts, and they basically said that initiatives are super laws. I've gone way off on a tangent, but my point is that if they enshrine SB 54 in an initiative, it's even harder to get rid of. And so we've got to be on top of that. But beyond that, we've got to be empowering the party and empowering our candidates so that we're actually knocking it out of the park there. And so then instead of saying, okay, we got to get rid of SB 54 because it damages our ability to pick our nominees, where we end up in a place where our nominees win anyway. And when our nominees win anyway, then what happens is people seek that nomination, and they'll do whatever they have to in order to play ball, because without it they can't win. And so that means that we've got to up our communication game, we've got to up our messaging, we've got to be doing a whole bunch of other things in order to empower ourselves. And that's where I feel like I bring a lot to the party and to the executive committee, because I've been a podcaster for 17 years. I know how to craft a message. I know how to tell a story. I know how to bring out the best in people. If you want to know how I do that, you can go watch the interviews prior to the chairs race, where I interviewed Rob and Phil, and really just kind of drew out the big factors that made either of them a solid candidate for chair, right? Hopefully then allowing people to make their own call based on who they thought they better identified with. But my point was that I thought Phil brought a lot to the table. I thought Rob brought a lot to the table, and I wanted to highlight that so people could make an informed decision. And what I want to do now is help the party do that, so that we are covering the issues and talking about the things that people care about, so that they go, well, I don't know about the red team, blue team, Republican, Democrat split, but the Republican Party covers the stuff I care about on their podcast or their YouTube channel or wherever else we're at on their social media. And so I follow them because I get good, solid information, and then I know how I need to think about some of these issues. And I think if we start delivering there, then people start to trust us, and they start to see us less as the Trump followers or the Biden followers or the Harris followers or the whoever comes after Trump followers. And instead they look at us, at least in Utah, and say, those people fight for what I care about. And then, maybe we win them over on the presidential stuff and things like that, where we can. And so I would love to be in the room and be speaking to this on the executive committee. And then finally, we've talked a lot about SB 54 and maybe running our own primaries. I'm a technologist. I'm a software developer. I know how a lot of this stuff goes together. I would happily build some of it. I'm working on some other projects right now. And so I would love to bring a group together and just explore what that really looks like, right? Because I've heard people say, well, it costs an extraordinary amount of money. And then I ask them, well, based on what? And it's based on some estimate that somebody gave them to run the primary. Well, we've got a ton of volunteers. We've got our precinct chairs and our House or legislative district chairs. We've got our county chairs and all of their teams. And so we should be able to do this without it costing a ton. But I think there's some exploration that needs to be done as far as like, how do we print ballots? How do we count ballots? How do we aggregate our data? How do we make sure that the elections run cleanly? How do we then manage and vet our candidates and all of that stuff? And so I really want to see us in the room having these conversations, so that instead of it being no, it's expensive, it's well, what if this were the case? Or how do we stack the odds in our favor? So all of these things, I think, really just kind of boil down to, letting the ideas percolate, having those discussions, making sure that those discussions are happening in front of leadership where they can actually pick them up and run with them. Make sure that the people who maybe, I've heard people say they don't trust Rob or don't like Rob, but let's face it, Rob's the chair. And so, make sure that they feel like their ideas are being heard and that things are going the way that they should, to the best ability that we can, and then get these people on board with the things that we are doing that make sense to them. And then if they don't get on board with everything, that's fine too, but at least then we're saying, hey, we're trying out some of the things that came from you guys too, and we're looking at how we can bring this together. Because I think, honestly, as much as we talk about SB 54, I think unity is really our biggest issue. And then one last thing is along the lines of us talking about the issues that people care about. We need to show them that we're up there fighting every day during the legislative session to make sure that the stuff that helps them goes through and the stuff that hurts them doesn't. And if we can tell that story, right? And so, bring some video equipment, bring some audio equipment, take pictures, take video of our leadership standing up and saying, hey, we don't stand for this. We don't want this in our schools. We don't want to pay more taxes. We don't want, whatever it is, right? You're taking away our freedoms. We are getting more traffic out of high density housing. Whatever it is, if we're showing up and we're representing on those issues, then people see us more than just the red team and not the blue team. They see us as, hey, those guys care and they're up there fighting for us. And so that's the final thing that I want to push through and see if we can work together, not just have the leadership do it, but have executive committee members, have central committee members, state central committee members, have party members, have party chairs, county party chairs show up and then show, hey, look, it's all the way up and down the chain. That's somebody that's just on the governing body, the state central committee that showed up. Hey, that's a person that, is just on the executive committee, right, that showed up. Hey, that's our state party chair that stood up on an issue that we all agree on. And so those are the things that I really feel like we can push through on the executive committee, and those are the things that I'm committed to if I get elected to the executive committee. And whenever we wind up wrapping up that vote, I would love your support. If you're not in CD4, or even if you are, and you're thinking, hey, Chuck, I want to talk to you about my idea about how we defeat SB 54, or hey, Chuck, I want to talk to you about my idea of a topic that we can cover as a party and bring people along, or hey, I'm really good at social media and I'd like to help out, I would love to talk to you. My phone number is 801-367-6164. If you're in CD4 and you want to talk to me about the executive committee stuff, you can also call me. You can email me too. My email is chuck@lostjungles.com. All right, good luck, and we'll see you at the next SEC meeting.